Welcome to Sebring, Florida for round 2 of the 1966 World Sports Car Championship, here for the 12 Hours of Sebring. This is part 13 in the 1966 Let's Race series, where I take on the role of Richie Axelson and race through many different events throughout the season, ultimately leading up to the Formula One World Championship. Last time out in the World Sports Car Series, we were racing, of course, the Daytona 24, and it couldn't have gone much better. Came away with the win there, dueling with Ferrari in classic Ford versus Ferrari fashion. And this race seems like it may live up to the same excitement. We've got a great battle up front, I think, for this one. So we've come all the way back to Florida after a few weeks off, finishing up the Tasman Series there in Australia, winning the championship from Jim Clark. So this early season has been really good for Richie, and hopefully this will continue as we build up to the start of the Formula One season. So the 12 Hours of Sebring is one of the top 3 endurance races in the United States, and in 1966 it was probably the #1 endurance race in the United States. The Daytona 24 had just had its very first running, and this was the 16th running of the 12 Hours of Sebring. The race itself is similar to it is these days. It starts during the day and goes into the night, racing over a bumpy airfield circuit, but the circuit itself was a little bit longer in the 60s and is quite difficult. I think this track itself is much more difficult than the Daytona track for endurance racing. Passing slower cars is difficult, and the speed differential around much of the circuit isn't that much different since you're traveling through some slower sections, and these cars in the 60s didn't exactly have, the same downforce levels that a prototype might today. So Richie here has been invited back to race the Ford GTs with the Holman Moody team, the same team we raced for at the Daytona 24, and paired up again with Richie Ginther. This is a 12-hour race, of course, in real life, and going with the 30% distance that I'm doing for all these races, this one's going to be 4 hours, so should be around 2 hours, 2.5 hours of driving time for each driver. Plenty of time for a lot of action. The 1966 12 Hours of Sebring has been somewhat forgotten on purpose. It was a terribly tragic event. It started off as an exciting event. Ford brought 3 normal Ford GT Mark IIs, 2 with the Holman and Moody team, driven by AJ Foyt, Mark Donohue, and 1 with the Shelby American team, driven by Dan Gurney. They also brought a special version of the Ford GT, which I believe was a combination of the Mark I chassis with some Mark II components, and of course the higher horsepower engine of the Mark II, and that was called the X1, driven by Ken Miles and Lloyd Ruby, the winners from the Daytona race. The Ford juggernaut really didn't have the same competition they did back at Daytona. Ferrari only showed up with 1 factory team, a new Ferrari 330 P3 driven by Mike Parks and Bob Bondurant, and then the Nart Ferrari team showed up with Pedro Rodriguez and Mario Andretti driving one of the 365s. Chaparral, of course, showed up with 2 of their very fast but unreliable cars, but clearly it was going to be Ford's race. The race got off to a competitive start with the Ferraris, Ford GTs, and Chaparrals all battling for the lead. But after about an hour and a half into the race, both Chaparrals fell out due to mechanical failures, and Dan Gurney had taken the lead from Ken Miles. But this is when tragedy struck. One of the older Ford GT Mark I's, driven by Bob McLean in the sports car class, was heading around Big Bend when supposedly his gearbox locked up. It sent the car flying off the circuit, and luckily avoiding spectators, but ended with the car in a telephone pole. Apparently the car hit exactly where the fuel tank was, and of course it burst into flames. The safety crews at Sebring were not equipped for a fire this size, and so the car ultimately burned away by the side of the track for the next few hours, Bob McLean ultimately dying as a part of the incident. The race went on quite processionally into the evening, Dan Gurney leading the way from Ken Miles and Lloyd Ruby behind. But coming into the final 2 hours of the race, tragedy struck once again. Mario Andretti had just come out of the pits in his 365, taking over for Pedro Rodriguez. But going into the chicane after the warehouse straight, the Ferrari's gearbox locked up, going from 4th to 1st gear, spinning out Mario Andretti. Don Wester behind, driving a Porsche 906, saw the spinning Ferrari in front and thought he saw a way around, but instead made slight contact with the Ferrari and sent both of the cars sliding off the track. Both cars unfortunately slid into a spectator area, and you can imagine what happened from there. Don Wester was okay with some injuries. Mario Andretti somehow was unscathed and actually drove back to the pit lane, not really knowing what had happened, but 4 lives in the crowd were taken as a part of this, and it's almost lucky the incident happened as late in the race as it did at night. There weren't that big of crowds by that area of the circuit, but clearly put a damper on this type of race, and it's surprising that the race even from here finished, but the full impact of what had happened really wasn't known until the sun came up the next day. Coming to the end of the race, a little last-minute drama. Dan Gurney's car, leading the way for the majority of the race, had its engine breakdown on the final lap. Lloyd Ruby, Ken Miles' car passed by and ultimately won the race. There was obviously a big backlash to this event after it was finished, having 2 fatal accidents and 1 taking out spectators. After this race, the circuit was modified and had an alternate route away from the warehouse section that proved so dangerous. Crowd and spectator sections were also changed and additional walls and barriers put up, and luckily Sebring has not had any kind of incident like this since. So it's not surprising this race has been somewhat forgotten, and although it was a triumphant day for Ford overall, it didn't really feel like a time for celebration. So hopefully the race here today goes a lot more smoothly than the real-life event went. We're racing actually on the 1967 and later version of the circuit. I don't believe the earlier version exists, but this one does fit the part. It's just from 1 year later, and I'll point out as we're racing where it slightly changes from the 66 version itself. So we'll take a look at the points after 1 round of the championship, and of course this is the World Sports Car Championship, so it's all about the cars and the makes, and the way the points work are the highest finishing make of car is what scores the points, and that's the only one that scores. So there's a bit of strategy in having, Fords fill up the top 3 positions, and that the next car back will only be able to get 4th or better, but it's only ever the top scoring car that gets the points themselves. So after the Daytona race, we came away with 9 points for the win for Ford. Ferrari did finish second, so there's 6 points there, and Chaparral, of course, didn't score. These are the points specifically for the prototype class, since that's what I'm racing in. But it'll be interesting to see here today how things change. I think there's quite an opportunity for Ferrari or even Chaparral, really, to score some points. So we'll take a look at the starting grid, and just like in real life, Dan Gurney leads the way, getting on the pole there. Super fast time by him. Hopefully I can keep up during the race, but just in front of the 2 Ferraris, we got Mike Parks. That's the Parks and Bob Bondurant machine in second. The new 330 P3, so the newer Ferrari chassis from the actual works team. And right behind him with the NART team, the Pedro Rodriguez and Mario Andretti 365, which I raced quite a bit at Daytona. So the 2 Ferraris are lurking there, but Dan Gurney clearly has a point to prove during this one. Behind them, though, and definitely won't let them sleep, Ken Miles and Lloyd Ruby's #1 GT40 from Shelby American, and they'll be starting 4th. Had a Hap Sharp in the first of the Chaparrals, and I'm sandwiched here a bit between them. I'm starting in 6th position, the 2 Richies in the Holman Moody GT40 MkII, ahead of Joe Bonnier and Phil Hill in the other Chaparral. And of course, the Chaparrals, they're actually really quick, but will they go the distance is always the question. Rounding out the prototype field of our class, AJ Foyt and Ronnie Bucknam are in for Holman Moody, as well as Walt Hansgen and Mark Donahue as well. So I've got 2 sister cars even on the same team. And rounding out the field, we actually have a Roger Penske entered Chevy Corvette Grand Sport. It's a super powerful version of the Corvette, and actually is competing in the same class we are. Looking further down for the other classes, leading the Sport 2000 class, quite fitting, Bob McLean's GT40, and that class is almost entirely GT40 Mark I's. It gets a little confusing just because the cars look so similar to the Mark IIs that we're driving, but they are quite a bit slower, especially in a straight line. But that class, Bob McLean, we'll see if he can come home with it. It is interesting to note Graham Hill and Jackie Stewart, starting back in 14th there, are both driving a GT40 together, which is quite cool to see. And for the P2 class, it's the 2 Works Porsche 906s with Hans Hermann starting on the pole there. It'll be interesting to see if they can stay in front of the Dino Ferrari 206, which is a pretty cool car, much better fitting for a tight and twisty circuit than maybe something like this, but that one's being piloted by Scarfiati and Lorenzo Bandini. And lastly, in the GT class, it's a little bit of the Lotus Elan show, with that car starting on the pole quite handily over the GT350 Shelby, but anything can happen, and some of the cars in the GT class are very slow, so it's going to be pretty interesting to work our way around them throughout the race. So like I did with Daytona, this grid itself isn't exactly real to life. I'm using the Power and Glory mod in GTR2, supplemented a bit with the World Sports Car 67 mod from Evolution Modding, as well as a little bit of Absolute Le Mans. So there's a bunch of mods and cars and things in here. A lot of work has gone in for myself just to try to BOP everything and get it all to perform somewhat realistically. But the grid itself Has a lot of the real drivers from the race. It's not the full grid, but we've got 44 cars here. I think it's going to be plenty with traffic and everything to have a pretty exciting race. And as for strategy, I expect to be able to do about 12 laps on fuel, maybe 35 minutes. So there's going to be quite a few stops during the race. I'm hoping to at least do a double stint at the start and then hand it over to Richie Ginther for probably a double stint as well. I want to try to end up being the driver at the end as well. So I have to figure out as we go exactly how everything looks when everybody else is pitting, and hopefully the strategy like it did at Daytona can work out for ourselves too. So that's enough talking. I know everybody really enjoyed the first World Sports Car race at Daytona, so hopefully this one's just as good. Like I said, I think this is going to be a really challenging race, and my goal really is to get to the end, stay on the track the whole time. And if I can do those two things, I think I'll finish pretty far up towards the front. So let's get started with this, the 1966 Sebring 12 Hours. All right, so here we are on the grid, Le Mans style standing start. Just to wait for the green flag. No running, of course. There we go, green's out. Oh, we're underway. Got tapped from the side there. We'll try to get away. Getting held up a bit by one of the chaparrals. Got the other one just shot to my outside. We'll come down to the first corner, nice and easy. Oh, losing a little bit of ground. Right, accelerate out. Got my team car next to me there. Oh, the Ferrari 330 in front getting all kinds of sideways. Everybody splits. So we'll head down to Tower Corner. Down to first gear for the first lap. Ken Miles got in front of the number 5. Here's the Jim Hall. Oh, it cuts in front of me. It's the Jim Hall chaparral. And I got one of the 4 GTs to my left now into the S's. Not really a place where you can go too wide. Got the other chaparral right behind me. So slicing and dicing here. We'll come through Big Bend. Try to get it up the inside of the number 4. It's the Mark Donahue teammate. Come down now to the hairpins, heavy braking corner, not on the modern track. See if I can slip it up the inside too. The number 5, everybody getting bottled up there. There we go, so making a pass on Jim Hall's chaparral. Now stuck in behind Ken Miles. Get down to second now for the chicane. Such a tight chicane too. These are just little taxi roads that'll lead us by the warehouses there on the left. And this is the straightaway that wasn't a part of the track in 1966. It was deviated later. But now we'll come to probably the hardest corner on the track, at least for me. This kink here. Deceptively slow. Need to get down to second gear. Just float it on through. A lot of the other cars can go quicker here than me. But now we'll come to a 90-degree right-hander. Want to get the exit here good. So this will head us onto the Fortress straightaway, the longest straight on the track. Past all the airplanes, P-51s there to the right and left. All the way up to 4th gear. We're in the slipstream now with Ken Miles in front, up into 5th place. Come to the end of the straightaway just before the 300 board, heavy braking, all the way down to 1st gear. For another 90-degree right-hander, and then onto the back straightaway. So making a big square rectangle at the end of the track here, but now we'll head forward to the final corner, double apex right-hander, Sunset Bend. Brake a little bit later for this one. Just need to go down to second. Cold tires, full fuel, have to go a little tentatively here. Roll it through the second half of the corner too. There we go, get a good exit. Oh, we're gonna watch that Armco on the left side there. Come across the line, complete the first lap. Man, that was a pretty hectic start. I feel like I got hit 2 or 3 times off the grid there. But got around the chaparral. Oh, look up the inside of Miles. It's tentative through the first corner, second corner now. Just roll it on through on the inside. We'll call it the Tower Corner. He's falling back a little bit. It looks like the chaparral's all over him. Oh, I cut the corner quite a bit there. Can get black flags for track limits here, so need to be careful about stuff like that. Second gear now for the S's. Luckily the cones are all fixed in place. Don't have to worry about debris everywhere, but now working through Big Bend. Long right-hander, famous corner, of course. back up now, staring straight at a huge sandbank. It's quite a normal feature in tracks of the 60s and 70s. You see it at Le Mans too. But for heavy braking zones, big sandbanks next to the track, it'll definitely keep the cars in there, but talk about an abrupt stop. Come into the chicane again. So this chicane, it's a little earlier on the track in this version than it was in 1966. It's the main change. You can see the warehouses to the left there, and the road that goes between those is where the racetrack was. And then up here, right on the left, right here is where the chicane was. So that's really the major change from 1966 to 67. But just to make sure everybody didn't need to go past those warehouses. I got Ken Miles now right on me. Get it down to first gear. Hopefully plays nice with his teammate. Probably didn't expect me to jump up the inside through turn one. A lot of oversteer there on a Fortress. Work it flat out here. Up to fourth gear then. When it slows down, we're chasing one of the Ferraris. I think it's the 365s. That would be the Andretti Rodriguez car, the one we raced with at Daytona. So though there's only two Ferraris, they're doing quite well right now. Looks like the 330 is chasing Dan Gurney up there in the black Ford GT40. The apex here, Ken Miles in the mirror. Turn one's just a lift off of third gear. Oh, and a car off the track there to the right. Looks like a couple cars actually in the grass. Try to keep focusing forward. No idea who that would be. Looked like they were on the roofs or on the side or something. No yellow flags or anything for that. Of course, no safety cars in the 60s sports car racing, so just keep driving on, I guess. But catching up to the 2 leaders, looks like the 365, oh, the 330's all over the track up there. The hairpin. They're side by side. It's going to slow them down quite a bit. Try not to spin the tires coming through the hairpin. It's so easy to do. Call it to the chicane here. Just want to hit the curbs. Cones are right on the apex. You basically want to aim for those. Get the car right next to them. Holding with the 2 Ferraris here. If I can get a good enough exit onto Fortress, might be able to get around to the inside. But they'll be quick here through the corners. Now the Ferraris are a bit quicker in the twisty stuff. The sky's looking fairly ominous too, which it absolutely can rain here. Ugh, a lot of oversteer. I missed the apex there a little bit. That'll lose me a little bit of distance too. I'm definitely not going to be close enough for anything on this lap. Just try to get this braking zone right just before the 300. I basically need to recite these braking zones to myself because that's the only way I'm going to get them right over and over again. I can just see Ken Miles there in the mirror pulling up on me. So scary. Looks like he's got the chaparral all over him too, so he's pushing. The end of the back straightaway, second gear through the final corner. A little fast on the entry, we'll just slide it in. Sometimes you can get a nice 4-wheel drift here through the exit. Not quite that time. The car's still really heavy with fuel. Got 30 gallons left. try to do my best to save fuel. Yeah, 2 cars there off to the right. It's like 2 white cars. That might be, I'm not sure actually. So quite a few white cars in the race. It looks like 2 cars had an incident here on one of the opening laps. And they'll likely stay there for the rest of it, so unfortunately not far off reality. Try to get through the S's nice. You can slide the car through there quite a bit. And I should note as well, the wheel on the screen doesn't move exactly with the wheel in my hands. It moves a lot less actually, so if it looks like I'm not making any inputs and the car is turning, it's because the wheel in my hands moves quite a bit more. It's just a quirk of GTR2. I come into the chicane. Maybe shift up to 4th there a little earlier, down to 2nd. Got some skid marks there through that corner too. So I just want to get into a rhythm here. I'm sticking with these guys, if not driving a little bit faster. It looks like Gurney up ahead is pulling slightly ahead, which is not surprising. I'm surprised though Ken Miles is behind me. I didn't foresee that. Got around him there right at the start. And we'll come down, heavy braking, maybe a little late on the brakes there, just give it a little extra. Have to do a lot of rev matching on the downshift, heel and toe, and this car is an absolute must. Something hopefully worked on a bit since Daytona. At Daytona there's one corner that's really like that, which is turn 1, and it had quite enough difficulties there. That corner itself has its own quirks, being that you're coming off the banking and everything, but if that track had one of those turns, this track has 3 or 4 of them. Come onto the bridge there, complete this lap, starting lap number 5. Did a 2:51, so we're going quite fast. It's right around qualifying pace. Still steaming cars on the outside there. Down a tower corner. Sometimes want to put it in first there just to get a better run out, but can also upset the car in the entry. 2nd gear all through the S's here. Just want to nip the grass, help turn the car a little bit. Bit too much there, is going to shoot me out wide. Come through Big Bend though. So it should be not too much longer honestly till we start hitting the GT cars, and hopefully not hitting them, passing them, catching up to them. Oh, so slow. Maybe could have even dove to the inside there at the last second. But the slow traffic's gonna change the whole dynamic of the race. We'll probably hit them, I would imagine, in not too much longer. There's some very slow cars, unless those are the cars that crashed off. Some Triumphs at the very back of the pack that are not quick. Right in the slipstream now, the 365 though, actually pulling in, so head up to the kink. Outbrake me a bit. I don't want to outbrake myself into here. Oh, I gotta run wide a little bit. Get it back on the tarmac. Because I took a weird entry there. There's just no grip on the concrete. Got that simulated pretty well in GTR2 here. The bumps aren't there. Of course, the bumps wouldn't have been as bad in 1966 as they are these days, but definitely would not have been this smooth either. But otherwise, the track itself, I feel like looks pretty awesome. I love all the parked planes and everything. It really makes you feel like you're there. Down to second, down to first. Slide it in. Should probably help me out quite a bit. Not good for the tires. Not sure tire wear will be too much of a concern, but we definitely will change them on the pit stops. Down to second for sunset. Just gonna throw it in. Maybe gonna slide a little bit. Need to get back on the accelerator, help turn the car. Understeering, oversteering. Saw one car in the pit lane there. There's quite a lot of runoff on the edges of the track, all over it, through this section especially, but really can't use it all the way. You'll get black flagged or get your lap time invalidated. I know it's at least that way in practice. I don't want to find out in the race if the stewards are going to penalize. So the 365 has caught the 330. Oh, gonna run a little wide here. Oversteered. Use that extra road there. Luckily keeping it on the black stuff. The line all wrong. I think the 330 is a little heavier overall, but quicker in a straight line. It seems to be the general compromise cars are making. The 365s looks up the inside. Ooh, they touch. Oh, some metal going everywhere. They're both Ferraris. They're not both on the Works Ferrari team, but you definitely don't want to be hitting each other this early in the race, or at all as teammates. It's just going to help Gurney pull more ahead. It's going to help me catch them. Try to keep it off the grass. Easy to dip the lefts on the grass there into the kink. And here comes Miles back. I knew he wouldn't leave me alone forever. He's going to tip it up the inside here onto Fortress. Just like that, he gets around. So after we did a few laps there, about a half a tank of fuel, half a run, he's now got quite a lot of speed. If he makes quick work of the Ferraris, maybe I can follow him on through. First gear. Looks like the 330 really got ahead there. I'd expect them to be quicker on this part of the track. I'm going to oversteer there onto back straightaway. Down to second gear. Nice and easy through sunset. Oh, it looks like the two Ferraris going in the pits. Very early for pit stops. We'll come through side by side with Miles, coming down to turn one. Slide it on through. Can't see Gurney at all ahead, but the two Ferraris going in definitely have at least 4 or 5 more laps before we have to pit. Miles leaving the door open here, see if I can come down the inside. Get a good run, but want to leave plenty of space for him. Come into the S's. Not really a side-by-side place. Ken, oh, he takes to the inside to keep that kept in it. Through Big Bend now, chops me off. Yeah, so early they pit, very early. Interesting they pit that early. The race itself doesn't work out exactly with the stop since it's about a 35-minute run, like I said, so they might just be going off strategy, catching these two alphas in front. Stuck in the exhaust fumes of Miles. Zip up the inside of this first alpha. I don't know if I'm going to get to him before the chicane. Oh, I'm going to lose a little bit of time here. Get around him to the left. Hopefully we can get around the other one before the kink. The traffic has begun. Unlikely we'll see clear laps again in this one, unless we get a lot of attrition. Feels like we might already have a little bit. Those cars off the track. Oh, I think I locked up the brakes there, running into the grass. Oh, what is this, the third time I've gone off here? Just try to avoid the marshals there, brave guys. We'll come into this 90-degree corner for Fortress. One of the Alphas zipping on past again. Get the throttle back down. I got the chaparral behind one of the other Alphas there. Just put the head back down. I don't know why I definitely locked it up that time, is why I slid off. But those type of mistakes, don't need to be making those, with 3.5 hours to go. It adds up. Get down to first gear here. Don't want to drive conservative either, but no reason to be doing that. All right, slide it on in. It's possible the 330 and the 365 eat up a little more fuel than the GT40s, but that would be quite impressive for them to use that much more fuel than we are. But it doesn't look like Gurney or Miles is pit yet, so might just be a Ford day like it was in real life. Looks like we got a Corvette in front of us, one of the Penske cars. Penske had two Corvettes in this race. One was more of a GT car, and then the Grand Sport, which I doubt this is that car because we would not be catching it this quickly. We're going to run a little wide there. It's supposed to be the Winterstein, or definitely the Penske. See if I can get on the inside of them into the hairpin maybe. Out of first gear here. Able to get him under braking, compromise the entry a bit though, but that'll happen. Still got Miles in front of me. Get down to second. Oh, gotta very much get close to the edge there. All right, need to concentrate on getting through the kink. To fourth gear. Down to second. Just don't lock the tires. I don't know if I locked them last time because I also don't really see skid marks. Whoa, big tank slapper there on the grass slightly. Just all over the track. The car changes feeling a lot during the run. It's one thing I've noticed in Power and Glory. It's definitely faster on low fuel, but cars are very springy on the suspension. You can probably tell by the way the chassis rolls and everything, which looking at videos seems pretty accurate. I know these cars were researched quite a lot for making this mod. Looks like we got the GT350 in front, which would probably be just as fast as we are on the straights. Obviously a much heavier car, different spec. Coming to Sunset, lumbering beast in front. It's a cool looking car though. Oh, and it looks like one of the GT40s in the pits there. It might be Gurney. See if I can sneak around the outside of the 350 into T1. Looks like Miles is still out in front of me, but Gurney pit. We're up to second now. It's a little early for a pit stop, but again, it's not exactly, I think it'll be 6 or 7 stops, and it's not exactly that, so maybe a strategy thing, maybe used a little more fuel to run that fast. our way through the S's here, though. Sticking with Miles very nicely now that I've kept the car on the circuit. Brakes whining away there. So I'd imagine we have at least a couple more laps in it. The lap timer in the left, bottom left with the fuel is not accurate at all. Looks like we're catching one of the Triumphs, so maybe it wasn't the Triumphs that crashed out. It'll be interesting to see once I hop out of the car who retired and everything. Right, there goes Miles past the Triumph. Such a slow car. Must be frightening to race that thing. One of those things where it probably feels like you're going fast while you're driving it, but you get blown by on the straightaways by 50 miles an hour or something. Nice and smooth there. Second gear. Looks like Miles might be coming into the pits, so we're at least going to get one more lap on him here. That'll put us into the lead, so we're running longer on fuel, kind of like Daytona was. Try to put good laps together. Should be faster right now on these laps than they would be coming out of the pits with full fuel, so we can see if I can capitalize on that. Ultimately, I don't know if there's going to be enough time to actually make up a stop by running longer, so I'll kind of net out to the same, but you never know. Also matters where you end up in traffic and all of this, so get through the S's here. Ooh. A lot of oversteer there. Clear track in front, though. It in second, just through the chicane. Always feels like I'm gonna go too fast into the entry. Most of the time I don't. There's still a clear track ahead. It's what you'd like to see. I think I can do one more lap after this. Don't need to risk it, to the very, very edge. Especially where it seems like, Gurney had pit 5 laps ago or something. Could have started with less fuel. I don't know if they do that in GTR2. Just saw a car peek out a view in front as I got onto Fortress here. Probably won't come through on the video. First gear. Ooh, bit of a tank slapper there. And I don't know if I can make it another lap. I might want to come in this lap. I guess I'll have to go one more. I didn't tell my crew that I was going to pit. Although they must be wondering where I am, but I want to say it's going to be very tight, I think. Not the time that I want to be taking chance on strategy, but pit stop's going to take extra long if I come in right now. Fuel light just comes on, so wave my hand out the window. Let the guys know next time through I'm pitting. And hopefully I can make it the lap. See one of the, might be the Dino in the pits there. Ferrari Dino. We'll stay in the car this time. We'll do a double stint. At least we'll see how I feel after the second stint. See where things are at. Obviously need to let Richie Ginther drive too. I'm into the S's again. 5.5, we should be able to make it around. So we're on lap 11, so this is about what I thought we'd be able to do anyway. Maybe one lap shorter. So, crazy start to the stint. Then towards the end here, it's quieted down a bit, coming up on a Cobra now. The chicane, probably going to catch him right in the kink like I always seem to. Nice and easy. Got 48 seconds on the car behind, which is definitely not enough to stay ahead through pit stop. Pulling in on this Cobra here, but it's going to be just as we enter the kink, which is never good. Try to slow down. I don't want to run wide. Ooh, getting a tank slapper there. It gives me the space, thankfully. I scared him as well as he saw my car jump to the side. Look at the run through. The Cobra is pretty quick mid-corner. It's definitely a more agile car than the GT40, but obviously got it down the straightaways. So leading quite a few laps here at the end, and it might be a little bit just on pit cycle, not really pit strategy, but definitely feels good to be out front once again. Really in the second endurance race. Have a perfect record so far. Who knows how this one could turn out. Alright, we'll come down to Sunset though, and the pit entry's a little odd. So it's kind of right at the apex of the second part of this corner. Just slide it around. I need to cut this a little closer. Get it down to first gear. There's a speed limit in the pits just because of GTR2. Oh, where's the pit crew? Aren't they supposed to be down here? There we go. Pit crew disappearing for a second, but we'll let them do their work. Alright, so just finishing up the tires here in the car, and it seems like the pit lane has absolutely come alive as everybody's diving in and out. Ooh, a car spinning in my mirror, too. Alright, pit crew lets me down. Restart the car. Alright, and away we go. So that's the Alpha behind me. He's going to come alongside. We're going to have to let him by, maybe. That was so slow coming out of the pits, but don't want to get in any kind of accident. You can see his left rear bumper is actually bent in. Quite slow down the pit lane here. I think it's 50 miles an hour pit speed in GTR2, and we'll come to the end of the pits and gas it up. All right, so a weird pit stop, weird entry. I don't know why the crew disappeared, but luckily they still service the car. We'll get back out. So I'm in 8th place somehow. So I thought I was doing really well leading the race, but might have been losing time. Who knows? Down to second gear here. Just try to be nice and easy here on new tires, full fuel. 11 seconds back of the car and ahead. But 8th place would put me, second to last in class, which is not where I want to be. So see what I can do here. But for the first couple laps, the car will be maybe a little bit slower. See a car just dipping out of sight there. I imagine that's who's in front of me. Was taking it a little bit easy out front. Once you get out front, sometimes you feel like you might be able to just lay back a little bit, make sure the laps are clean, but clearly everybody behind me was still at it, furiously racing. So lesson learned, don't let your guard up. All right, we'll get through the second part of the chicane. Ooh. To the kink here. Down to first gear, slide it in, gather it up just barely onto Fortress. Coming up on one car, but I think it's a GT car, still 11 seconds back. The brakes, looks like we'll just get through the corner before we get to pass the Triumph here. Around the inside. Just nice and easy through Sunset. So easy to run wide there. There's that scary wall on the left, wrapped in Armco, that kind of protects the bridge, but feels like quite a dangerous location for a wall. Oh, gonna run a little wide there, trying to run too wide. I think I got a 904 in front, so not the car we're chasing there either, but pulled in a little bit. Cheating a little bit with the HUD on, but racing these endurance races, the default pit board in GTR2 I don't think is quite good enough. Through the S's there, and I can see a car just going through the hairpin now. 904, leave it open, jump up the inside, hopefully he just lays back. He does, thank you. I can see up there it's one of the chaparrals, so definitely quicker than him, just need to put the laps together to catch up. Want to be off the brakes by the time you turn in this car. Definitely does not like turning on the brakes. No trail braking in the GT40 on most corners. We'll come down and the race is flying by. We're already over 40 minutes into it, and by the time this stint's done, we'll be well over an hour. Compared to the 12 hours, I know obviously it's half the time, but it really goes by a lot quicker. At the 30% distance, even the 8 hours of the 24 felt like a really long race, but this doesn't quite feel as long. Oh, we're going to pass somebody who's in the pits. So up to 7th. Not sure who that was. Just keep putting the laps together. It was, I think, the quickest lap of the race that I've done so far. Should be able to get 50s if I'm really, once I get on lower fuel. Oh, I'm gonna run wide. That's not what I need. Luckily, get through the hay bales there, no issue. Just losing at least 5/10 or something there. Just trying to gather it back up and go. Seems like the Chaparral's picked it back up too. Obviously, a lost time there, but still about 8 seconds off. Can just see him in the hairpin. Try not to brake too late. It's so easy to overdo it. Seems like within 10 feet when you put on the brakes, you could either be stopping too soon or shooting wide. Getting through the kink all right that time. Oversteer coming into the 90. I'm gonna run a little bit wide, dodge the cones there. There's plenty of runoff, but like I said, you can't really use it, at least in qualifying and things. Your lap times will be invalidated. And the clouds look very ominous now. I don't know if it's getting worse or I'm just noticing it. But that would be throw wrench in things for the rain to start. Just slide it on through Sunset, a little bit wide. Try to get a late apex here. Oh, and another car in the pits. It looks like the AJ Foyt GT40 there. Oh, just cutting that corner quite a bit. Catching now the Chaparral. I'm only 3 seconds off, so clearly getting around this 904 was an issue. Or my car is finally picking up some speed. I don't know what the last lap was. I didn't look at the time. Zip around the inside though. A second down to first. Understeer there through the middle of the apex. You can clearly see the Chap now. I don't know which one we're chasing. Bonnier or Hall. Find out in a minute though. Fourth gear for just a second there. I don't want to ride the top of third if I don't have to. Braking a little bit late. I felt like I locked up the brakes or something. Luckily didn't go off the track that time, but totally missed the apex once again. So we're in 6th now, but passed a few cars just by way of pits, and overall concerned about the strategy piece. Not sure how I ended up falling back so far after the first round of pit stops. possibly be tires. I don't know if I should try double stinting some tires. They certainly don't feel like they're wearing out over the course of a run, but I'm trying not to go too deep into sunset. Got the 330 in the pits now too. Pulling up nicely now in the chaparral. We're right on him as we come into tower. That's number 5, so that's the Jim Hall machine. Hap Sharp as well. Oh, and he's quite slow here through the S's. Not sure I could dip it around the outside, but just try to line it up. Oh, for a big bend around the outside. Didn't mean to clobber into him there, but quite a bit slower through the apex than I thought he'd be. So able to get around one of the chaparrals up to 4th now. So that's one actual on-track pass this stint. Get down to 1st again. Got about 10 seconds up to the next car as well, so let's see what kind of dent I can put in that. But if we both pit and the chaparral comes out in front, then I know maybe we need the double stint tires. First. Oh, a lot of oversteer from the back. It's chaparral pulling up behind me. Should be able to get him down the straightaway. It's good still seeing the car in the race. I know at Daytona they fell out within the first hour, I think. Definitely one of the most prototype of the prototypes, if that's a thing. So negotiating the brake zones all right this time. Falling off a little bit the car in front. The chaparral behind me, so just slide it through the sunset bend. Oh, I'll pick up another couple spots from pits, so up to 2nd again. This is gonna be so hard to know how well we're doing for this race. We're 13 seconds off the leader. We still got quite a few laps to go with fuel. Just try to do the best laps I can. Seems like the chaparral might have gone in the pits. Just trying to keep it to the inside through Big Bend there. And of course the modern circuit right about at this Coke Bridge turns to the right. But overall, even though this version is quite a bit different, I think they've kept the spirit, and I like the modern version of Sebring just as well as this. And of course with the bumps, I wish this had a few more bumps on the concrete bits. The asphalt probably would be fairly smooth, I'd imagine, in these days. But already in 1966, much of the facility would have been 15-20 years since it was paved, so definitely would not have been smooth. Come up to the kink though behind a 904. I have to stay behind him through here. It's no worries, he's just about as quick as I am through there. down to first. Car gets so squirrely there. Definitely need a better car setup overall. I just could not get the car dialed in right for Sebring here. Definitely does not feel as comfortable as it did at Daytona to drive. Couple that with a arguably harder track to drive, then it's not an easy time. Good acceleration out of there, use a bit of the revs, try to shift at about 6,500 most of the time, past one of the 904s there. Down to second gear. Just try to get on that throttle a little bit, you can hear me punch it, just try to get the car to turn. Ooh, no, gonna over-rotate. Try to spin out and just get back going. Man, that's absolutely not what I needed. 904 luckily slows down to avoid me. And there's Ken Miles in the pits as well. So I take the lead as I spin the car through Sunset Bend. Haven't done that yet. I don't know how that happened. But man, easily lost 3-4 seconds. Let's try to gather it back up. So pretty bad stint overall. Just run off the track a few times, run late into corners, and then a big spin there, which no doubt Ken Miles would have seen. A little bit fast into the S's as well. Yeah, I lost about 9 seconds because I was nearly 40 seconds ahead of the car behind me before that happened, so super costly. That won't be good for when we come out of the pits, but maybe we'll give the car to Ginther. Alright, catching up to a 904, coming up to the chicane, but gonna have to stick behind him. Try to capitalize the exit here. Good run down the straightaway. He's gonna fade to the left. I'll go to the right on him. A little close. I think we've got a Ferrari 250 in front. There's a few of these at Daytona, but there's only one here in this race. Pretty quick car overall, but not in the same class. Still a ton of oversteer from behind. Coming on to Fortress. Fortress Straight, I think, was the unofficial name, named because they used to line up the B-17 Flying Fortresses along it. There's actually a few way back at the start of it, off to the left. Alright, slam it down on the brakes to get the aviation nostalgia out of my head. If I can pull alongside this 250. Just roll it on through Sunset. See my skid marks from the last lap. Got dangerously close there to that Armco. Across the lines at 253. I was a little slow, of course, down this straightaway. But need to be doing a lot better than 253s if I want to have any shot at this. Can maybe get away with 1 or 2 mistakes like that during a race, but I've had that many already, so really needs to be clean from here on out. First, try to get a little better turn in, but ultimately makes it too torquey. See a couple cars fighting into the hairpin there. Down to second, get it down to first. Just try to slide it on through, keep the minimum speed up as best I can. So it might be some of the alphas again. I end up passing the same cars quite a bit just because the speed difference between the Mark I and the Mark II GT40s isn't actually that great, just a couple seconds. And they're actually quite difficult to pass when we catch up to them. Right, coming up on one of the sprites now. Understeer there, turns into oversteer, of course. Past this 904 in the Sprite. We should have at least 2 laps before pitting. Just reaching the first hour mark, so about a quarter into the race. A lot of action so far, leading the way, but it doesn't feel like I actually have the lead. I'm quite worried about how this is all going to work out with the strategy and everything. It's discouraging to go in the pits in first and then come out in 7th or 8th position. I am pulling out again on second, ever so slightly. It's back up to 36 seconds, of course. Was 40 before that spin. That's definitely going to cost me. Would not be surprised if the car comes back out in 8th place again. Still a long way to go. I don't have to worry just yet. Hopefully Ginther has a good couple of stints. Always nerve-wracking to put the car in somebody else's hands, but I guess you would trust your teammate, and we did win the Daytona race together. We've raced in Formula One together in 1965, so couldn't give the car to a better driver, I think. Alright, we'll come down to first gear. A little bit of smoke there at the apex from the Sprite in front. Got about 11 gallons. Missing the apex on the second part, it just didn't slide in right. Should be able to get around the Sprite before the kink, though he'll be quick through there. That brake before turning in, that's the key to it. Get it on Fortress. Alright, so I think I'm gonna have to give 9.9. I didn't quite look at what the fuel was last time when I gave the 1 to go. I think it was 6. I'd done 11 laps, so we should be able to go one more. A little fast here into the 90. Better to just run the car straight and miss the apex instead of grabbing it in and likely just spin the car. By the pits. I'll give him the signal, I think 8.8. I don't know if it'll quite work. So give the crew the signal that going to be pitting. from the lead up to 38 seconds behind. Just got those two cars off to the right there. Right down to second gear. Trying to end with a good in-lap. It's easy to overcook it into that second to last, or the last left-hander in the S's. No matter how much you practice, just actually driving the race, you just learn so much more about the track and where you can push the car and everything. Even in these abbreviated versions, it's quite awesome how much more you get to experience the car than, you know, in one of the sprint races or something. Just got the little Triumph in front of me here. Oh, quite a slide there. Just dipped the rights onto the grass. Going up to a minute behind, so maybe the car that was behind me actually pit. Still, a minute's not nearly enough to do a full pit stop and come out, but just guide it through the corner here. We'll give it to Richie Ginther to do a couple stints. Hopefully he can keep us, you know, up to the top and prove, maybe be a bit more consistent than I am. And that should take us maybe another hour or so. Towards halfway. We'll come down to Sunset, just make sure we get that entry to the pit lane right. Hopefully our crew is there this time. Alright, got a Corvette pitting just in front of me down to first gear. There's the crew. We'll come change to Ginther. Alright, so after the first hour and the first two stints, we're leading the way, but of course it's a bit of fuel strategy and pit stop time and everything, so tough to tell who's actually in the lead, but Richie Axelson, Richie Ginther, we're in the lead in our Ford GT40. We got Dan Gurney behind in second. We'll definitely take over the lead after this pit stop, and interestingly enough, Maston Gregory with the SXY Ford GT40 Mark I, a part of the S2000 class, is in third position. So definitely some pit stops and everything going on, but really competitive, that class, and it'll be interesting to see how that all works out as we go here. Mike Parks and Pedro Rodriguez in the two Ferrari cars there in fourth and fifth position, and then Ken Miles rounds out the top six. Further back in the P2 category, we got the factory Porsche 906 with Gerhard Mitter at the wheel, leading away from the two other Porsche 906s with Joe Siffert and Lake Underwood driving those. And further back in the GT class, and there might be some strategy and things going on here obviously, but the Chevy Stingray from Wims is actually leading the way over the Lotus Elan, which is interesting because that car was so quick, but good to see the Chevy leading the race. And those two cars off the track, I believe, are the two Triumphs, Ludwig Heimrath's and Gil Martin's two Triumphs there at the back. And there's still one Triumph in the race, but seems like those two might have tangled in some of the early laps and crashed off at turn one. So we'll move on into the next hour now and see if Richie Ginther maybe can be a little more consistent than I was. All right, so Ginther's done his 2 stints, and we have just under 2 hours in the race to go. And coming out will be in 3rd position behind Ken Miles, Lloyd Ruby, and then the Foyt and Bucknam car. So it's all Ford up front. Interesting enough, through this pit stop cycle, John Whitmore in the GT40 MkI is actually up in the top 4. So it'll be interesting to see how well that car does overall. Clearly very quick around the track. Overall, it looked like Ginther had a good couple of stints. There was a little bit of a squabble there with one of the Alphas, and we had a little bit of damage repair on one of the stops, which is why I think we've fallen back a little bit, but otherwise it's been mostly clean. I need to try to put the heat on my Ford teammates. All right, so coming out of the pit lane, we'll try to merge here. Got one of the GT40 MkIs coming up the inside. Well, it's actually for position, so these MkIs are quite quick. It's going to be interesting to see where it all pans out in the end. Didn't think they would be in this, but I also saw AJ Foyt come into the pits too, so we might actually have that position. I'm not quite sure. We'll come into the S's. It's getting quite late in the evening, so there's an hour 51 remaining. Not sure which car this would be. This might be that John Whitmore car. Whoa, right up to the edge. They got to be close to coming into the pits. I can't imagine that on pace alone the car is actually quick enough to be in the lead, or up near the lead. Come down to first gear. It's the 52 car, which might actually be Will Wonder, so no idea. That's part of this. Part of the strategy of everything in racing, endurance races. You have kind of no idea, especially in these days, what position you're in and everything. Work it through the chicane though. All right, need to try to get on it. Need to get past this GT40. I should be quicker than it. Looks like Ginther actually set a quickest lap while he was out here of a 48, so clearly doing great work. First gear here. And beautiful sunset colors here at Sebring. Those threatening clouds have given way to a wonderful sunset. It does seem like that GT40 is pulling away, so got a little bit of rocket fuel in the engine or something. Come through. It seems like I am a little bit quicker, so we should be able to catch him and pass him. Once the tires come up to temperature, he's probably on light fuel as well. You can see the moon there straight ahead as we're going to come down to sunset. Right at about sunset. We should need the lights soon. Probably want to think about that. Whoa! Almost an accident there as the GT40 sweeps to the inside of a Cobra. Oh, it looks like he might be going in the pit lane. Sweeper on the outside, so that's why he's so quick, but it's pretty wild. It's probably a little off of real life, but it would be pretty wild to see one of the MkIs win a race here, and some gnarly skid marks on the front stretch. Oh, we got the Cobra right behind me. Still the 2 cars off there. The other Triumph did go off as well while Ginther was out, so none of the Triumphs left racing have not triumphed today. Get it down. We're in second now. Like I said, AJ Foyt pit as well, and he might be the car behind me by 16, but I think it's Ken Miles in the lead right now. 41 seconds. Just guided around here under the bridge through Big Bend. I'm trying to figure out what to do with the time left. I'm probably going to single stint this, give the car back to Ginther for 1 stint, and then jump back in so I can do the end, which is a little different than you would do in real life. Probably just do 2 stints here and then have Ginther finish it, but I want to finish the race. So I'm sure nobody will complain about that. So we'll do one stint here, have Ginther jump in, and then it's going to be, I think, an awkward amount of time left in the race. So we'll have to see what it turns up being, and everything could fall apart then. I think the strategy so far has been no strategy, just kind of racing, seeing what happens, and I don't know how long that's going to work for. Down to first gears, we'll turn onto Fortress. Ooh, and into the sunset there, just clipping those cones. I'm sure they won't mind. To fourth gear. You can see, I think, one of the sprites in front of me. Down to second gear, first gear then. A little late on the downshift there. Get to the inside here into sunset. Sprite brakes really late, able to carry a lot of speed into the corner. The little car moves quite quickly. Just gonna fade to the outside, I'll come to the inside. Communication is key with moving your car on the track when you're in multi-class racing. See cars there off in the distance. Should probably turn on the lights soon. Don't want to blind folks, but ooh, and the Healy, or the Sprite there. Thought he was maybe coming for my bumper. So it looks like we're pulling away from third position, but just about holding station with Miles in front. No idea how the pit strategy is working out. We could either end up being way in the lead because we're on a pit cycle, or we'll fall, way behind. I think I've got my own strategy here for pits, where we're gonna pit at least 2 more times. Try not to blow the engine there. Down to first. This tank should stretch us hopefully to about an hour 20 remaining. And if we have Ginther go out, I don't know, it's going to be really close on the last stint. I think it's going to be kind of a weird amount of time, like I said. Maybe another splash and go, kind of like we had at Daytona. Come down here to the kink, down to second gear. First. Alright, we'll come around here, and I think it's about time to turn on those lights. A nice glow on the track. The other cars should turn them on soon, whenever they think sunset is. Try to nail these corners. I want this stint to be cleaner than the last one. I felt pretty discouraged at that last stint with the spin and everything on the front straightaway. Come to one of the Corvettes here, one of Roger Penske's Corvettes. Across the line. So we're on lap 45 now. Got a Porsche coming out of the pits. So we can get up the inside of the Corvette for the second turn. Down to second here. One of these Porsches is actually pretty far up the total running order, so this one. Oh, kind of outbrake myself a little bit, slide into the S's. Luckily able to hold it on the black stuff. Just trying to outbrake the Porsche coming in there and almost threw it on the grass. Through the hairpin. It's pretty neat, this track at night. There are a few spotlights here and there which illuminate parts of the course, and at that hairpin's one of them. Just kind of a single bulb hanging over the track, very picturesque. Definitely not like it is today with the massive lights that almost make it like daytime on some of the circuits. Luckily still Le Mans and Sebring here don't have lights the whole way around. Second gear here. A little bit of oversteer. Thought I had the corner good that time. Red car in my mirror. I think that's still the Porsche. Just trying to keep an eye out. 16 seconds behind, still 40 in front, so really no quicker than the car in front. Not sure how Ginther would have pulled a 48 out of this. Through sunset there. See a few cars in the pit lane. Not Miles though. We got a GT40 coming out in front. Still no lights. I don't know how late they'll leave them to. So we can barely see. As long as I can see, I guess. And we got the extra tinted windshield in this Mark II. So this is one of the Mark I's. And through this middle section, they're not much slower, which is, I think, why they're doing so well in this race. I think in the real race, too, they did quite well. But it's on the straightaways that Mark II should have a little more oomph. Try to get under him here into Big Bend. So that's actually, I think that was the Graham Hill Jackie Stewart car. So good to see them still in the race. Very low attrition so far, which is great to see after the Daytona 24. Pretty much half the field was out after the first couple hours. Only have, I think, 4 cars out of the race at this point. They're all slower cars. I have to think maybe they got run over. Through the chicane there. Got a good group of cars in front we'll have to negotiate. Down to 38 seconds, so potentially Miles being held up by some of this traffic. And I know we're pitting at way different times at this stage. Oh, there comes that GT40 behind. He's going to look up the inside as we come onto Fortress. Wow. Much quicker through there. Oh. Getting on the gas a little too soon. Tank slapper. Totally kills the whole straightaway speed. Luckily didn't spin it out. It was very close that time, lock to lock. Oh, we got one of the 904s in front. Get to the inside of these two. GT40 just riding the rear of that 904. Possibly can't see him. Maybe he should turn on his lights. hear the GT40 behind me, although it's not that close. It feels like it's close. Might be the 904 I can hear in front. Pass him. Right down to the first corner. Got the Lotus in front of me. Surprising to see the Corvette leading the GT class ahead of the Elan, because it's just so much quicker of a car in practice and everything. But maybe it can't quite go the same distance on fuel or something like that. Get into the S's here. Should be able to get up the inside long before this hairpin. Got a Ferrari in front. It's probably the Dino, I'd imagine. That initial start, it seems the Works Ferrari and the 265, the Nart Ferrari, have really fallen off quite a bit. Come to the inside of him. Be a little awkward here coming through the kink. We leave the outside open for him. Oh, on the grass and everything. Quite the move to keep his position. GT40 closes back in. It's so quick through those couple of corners. Set our sights forward now. So 40 seconds still. Just holding it exactly where it is. Understeer in the braking zone there. There we go. I can see the lights on behind me. Really wait until the last second, don't they? But beautiful night effects. I've upgraded some of the graphics in GTR2, I found, through various sources, and it does look quite good for 15, 16 years old. Ooh, right up to the railing there on the outside. Across the line. About halfway through this run, hour 34 to go in the total race. Just say something like Ford wants Axelson to be in the car for the finish. Publicity, you know, for the start and the finish. Not that odd to have a specific driver to start and end a race, and I think, you know, had this been the full 12 hours, it'd be easier to work out the pit stops. But we'll have Ginther go back in after this stint for a single stint, and then I'll take the car to the end from there. Come down to the hairpin here. The Cobra there. Ultimately, Ginther seems like he's actually a little quicker than me, so maybe he can pull up on Miles here. Big slide there. Sometimes it grips up a little sooner than that. I was thinking it would. in on the Cobra. The Cobras are not slow. It's on the straightaway here that I catch them, but like many of the cars, like I'm saying, through the corners, the speed differential is really non-existent, and it makes sense. You know, cars these days, the prototypes have so much more downforce than the slower GT cars and sports cars that, you know, it makes this huge speed difference everywhere on the circuit. But mechanical grip can only go so far, and especially when those cars, you know, might be so much lighter. It's really just on the straightaways that there's an advantage for the quicker cars most of the time, maybe a little bit in the corners for depending on the make. Oh, and some smoke ahead. I don't know what that's from. Tough to tell. It looked black, but it might just be the lighting. Didn't see a car spun off or anything like that. Alright, so we've pulled out to 30 plus seconds. Seems like the car behind me might be pitting now. We still got a few laps till that needs to happen. Come down into the hairpin here, side by side with a Porsche 904. There, not sure what that is. Instinctively check your mirrors. Think somebody might be coming up behind you, but one of those light bulbs flicking on. But as it gets to night here, it does change the driving. It's of course the same circuit. I can still see quite well, but you do get kind of boxed in with your vision. You don't see your peripheral as much anymore. Ugh, gonna almost spin the car out there. My God, this corner coming onto the long straightaways is giving me so much trouble. Start making mistakes like that. Puts me back out to 40 seconds. I had been gaining a little bit on the car in front. Stuff like that just kills it. If we pull out something here today, I don't think it's going to be because of my driving. So we got about an hour and a half to go in the whole race. Got a couple laps till I need to come into pit. I was hoping to get to like an hour 20. Though I still don't think that's going to be good. I was hoping, 2 more stops would do it, but we might end up in a place where we got to do 2. So close to the wall there. 2 stops and then a splash at the end like we did at Daytona. Which is never good planning, and that's where it feels like we're going quick. Oh, we're in the lead again, so Ken Miles pits from the lead. Where it feels like we're going really quick. Oh, and a little deep on the brakes here. So that's where it gets hard, and under braking the track, it's harder to see where things are outside the headlight range. You can pretty easily run wide. Working through the S's. It's quite dark over on this part of the track. We've got a few of those lights there you can see on the left. And of course up ahead at the hairpin, thankfully lighting the apex up there. Take a little bit of that curve, maybe a little bit too much. looking for the kink. Missed the apex, but carry a good amount of speed through there. Come bring it down to first gear. Hit a car gaining on me quite a bit from behind. Not sure who that is. Looks like a GT40. But it's clearly not the car that's right behind me. 54 seconds on that car. Should be quick right now just with the fuel level and everything, but the car does not feel great. Down to first gear. Well, that looks like my team car, the Mark Donahue GT40. So I think they might be a lap down somehow. Gaining up on me at this stage. So we'll come through here. Well, looks like he goes into the pits, so don't have to worry about the car behind me anymore. Come do at least one more lap. I guess we'll have to do 2. No cars in front, dark track. Got some rather lit up airplanes. I like to imagine they probably have some lights on them or something. Advertising an airline. Grab quite a bit of the dirt there. Down to first. We've got 8.9 gallons left, so we'll flag the crew this time by. Feels short doing just a stint, but can't think of another way to get Ginther his riding time back in, but also let me finish the race. So we'll pit, we'll have Ginther take over for one stint, which should bring us well into the last hour. Hopefully, I'll be able to get in the car and just ride to the end, but we'll have to see what the fuel situation's like. Oh, a little bit deep on the braking, distracted. There's a car in front, gone off on the grass. We're gonna nail the fence there. I saw a smoking Porsche. There it goes. It's clearly some kind of incident. I'll get back on the track. We gotta go in the pits immediately. Car suspension feels a little bit sideways. The last thing it needed. And just another mistake. Braking a little bit too late. I was distracted about what I could see in front of me. Totally blew the corner and nailed the fence on the outside. Luckily the fence is there. Quite solid to keep the car in the track. Get down to second gear. We're still in the lead. But depending on how long these repairs are and everything, we'll have to get around these cones. Only 43 seconds in the lead. That might not be possible to keep the lead anymore. I'll have to see what the crew says about the damage. But just silly mistakes. Could have totally avoided that. Come around, get into this pits. Hopefully the crew's ready. Hopefully would have heard maybe on the speakers. Oh, we got a car in the pit stall. What's going on here? So pretty disastrous mistake right at the end. It looks like it was Hans Hermann that had run off the track there, and he's actually retired from the race now too. But it seems like the damage is going to be quite a lot to fix. And crazy that somebody was in the pit stall as I came into the pits. It actually looked like the Ferrari 330 was in there, but I imagine stuff like that actually happened quite a lot back in these dark pit lanes and everything before it was clearly marked out who's pitting where. So maybe a bit of realism there, but odd curveballs here coming at the with just under an hour and a half left to go in the race. hopefully Ginther can maybe pull something out of it, but I think we're going to be quite far behind. If we look at where everything was as we pulled in, we were in the lead, of course, but ahead of Ken Miles, AJ Foyt's team in third then, and then Maston Gregory in the S2000 GT40 there in fourth place. So still doing quite well, some of these GT40s. Rodriguez Andretti for Ferrari in fifth place overall, fourth in class. And then Dan Gurney coming back to it a little bit here in sixth position as well. So pretty tight battle up front, between the Ken Miles and Foyt teams. I'm actually surprised to see Foyt and Ronnie Bucknam up there, but good to see him nonetheless. And further down, Hans Hermann was actually in the lead of the P2 class. So with him falling out of the race, that puts Gerhard Mitter up there in the factory Porsche 906, leading the way ahead of another 906, but the Hughes privately entered car. And for the GT class, it looks like the Stingray is still leading the way, the Williams Stingray ahead of the Lotus Elan. So there's just under an hour remaining, and Ginther's done his stint. He did an excellent job out there. It was quite a long stop to fix some of the damage from me running off the track, but we were able to fix it. He says the car's okay, and he came into the pits in second position. So I think we'll actually get passed by Foyt at least while we're in the pit lane. But overall, quite a great job to keep it up that high. Ken Miles still leads, of course. Foyt will be in second. Then we got Pedro Rodriguez and Andretti in the 365 Ferrari. So we definitely want to keep them off the podium. And I think that's my goal now, is to try to get in front of this Ferrari and make sure that it's an all-Ford podium. If not, be able to do a little bit better. Right behind that, the leaders of the S2000 class with Gregory, Wonder, and McLean in the GT40s. Great to see those three up there quite quick and ahead of Dan Gurney, who must be having some issues, in eighth place overall. No changes really in the P2 and GT classes. Gerhard Mitter still leads the way in the Porsche 906 for the P2 class, and for GT, we still have the Corvette Stingray in the lead over the Lotus Elan. All right, so I'm pulling out of the pit lane, 50 minutes exactly to go, so it's definitely going to need one more stop, probably just a fuel stop to round things out, but we'll get back on the track. We're in fourth position overall, 18 seconds off the car in front, 8 seconds the car behind. I saw Foyt come into the pits again, so I actually thought he was going to pass me, but we're just about even. He shouldn't be that far behind in leaving. He pulled in just about the same time Ginther did. So Ginther did a great job keeping the car up front, but need to try to get back ahead of the Ferrari. I'm sure he's also got a pit again, but maybe only once, which makes things quite interesting. We'll get into the S's here. Proper dark now. Hopefully be able to keep the video bright enough for you to be able to see as well as I can, but it's pretty hard to see overall, and just need to try to make sure to keep it between the white lines, not do anything stupid. The car luckily feels all right. We'll have to see how fast it is down the straightaway, if it's lost any speed. You can see, I think, a Cobra in front of me. Down to second gear here. So hard to push at night, though. I find keeping the lap times fast in the dark is just not the same. And unfortunately, I don't think the AI have the same issue that I have. But definitely an art to racing at night. I know some are very good at it, but you just can't visually obviously see as much. I think in sim racing especially hurts you maybe a bit more to race in the dark like this. Luckily the headlights are fairly good. The green tint to them is a little off. Get it onto Fortress straight. So we should be able to go about 35 minutes total on this tank, and my thought is to pretty much run it dry, I think, and then come in with maybe aim for like 20 minutes to go. And then hopefully be able to just do a quicker pit stop just for fuel, won't take any tires. Should make it to the end, I hope. Haven't done a double stint on tires yet. Down to sunset. Sun is firmly set at this point. This 904. We got GT40 leaving the pits there. I think that might have been the Mark Donahue car. This Cobra into tower. Maybe you can get on the inside here. Try not to run it too deep. Oh, side by side with the Cobra. Want to get ahead of him before the S's. There we go. Luckily, not going to do that too wide stuff like we did the Chaparrals early on. The Chaparrals still in the race. They've just really fallen off, it seems. Good. A little wide there. So maybe some issues, made them pit a few times. But great to see so many cars still running. Keeps things interesting when you're lapping for sure. Running a little bit wide onto the dirt, slightly through the hairpin. Clear track in front. I don't see any cars. We're 15 seconds off third place. I have to imagine pretty much everybody driving now is going to need one more stop, and it just matters where that comes. As soon as we get, under 40 minutes, it's probable that you could make it to the end from there. Ooh, depending on the car. Gosh, still messing up these corners right around the outside of the track. Those hay bales would certainly be gone by now. Raced at a lot of tracks this season so far, and I think this one is not the most difficult technically, but it just is proving to be a really hard track to race this car around. Down to first there. Sunset, just make sure I don't come in too quick. You lose the sense of speed because you can only see what's right in front of you without the peripheral at all, so it makes it really hard to judge how fast you're entering a corner. I've come up with every excuse in the book, but just get across. It's not easy to do the nighttime driving here. Luckily, it's been a clear race, no rain. It looks like early on there was going to be maybe some rain happening with all the clouds, but it held off. This night plus rain would be maybe too much. just see a car off ahead coming into the hairpin. Catch a couple lap cars this time, it looks like. Oh, once again, tipping the wheels off. It's something I didn't do at all in the daylight. Down to 11 seconds in front, so I am pulling in on the car ahead a little bit. I have to think it's the Ferrari. First, slide it on in. A little sketchy, but not slow. It's not a bad way to get it around there if I can hold on to it. Hard on the brakes. Got a string of cars here in front. I think the first one in line's the Corvette, one of the Corvettes. I think the Corvette that's in the lead. Or no, that's not the Corvette in the lead of the GT. It's the Penske Corvette. The Auto Lab Corvette's in the lead. Haven't seen that car too much, but also got the Lotus Elan. A little hot coming into Sunset here. Oh, that's exactly it. Just trying to pass a car that maybe I can't. He dips into the pits, of course. I just waited an extra second there. 41 minutes remaining. Not sure if they'll make it to the end from here. Probably totally different fuel situation. Down the second gear for Tower Corner. Tower Corner named for the airport tower, of course. Behind one of the Alfa Romeos here through the S's. Love the sound of this car. I think I mistakenly called it a Ferrari when we were racing at Daytona, but total blistering engine, gotta love it. Late down into first there, but no harm with that. Ooh, missing the first apex there into the chicane. Grab the second one nicely, a little bit of oversteer in the exit. Up to the 904 as we get to the kink. It's just not going to be a place where I can get around them. I know they're just as fast as me through the apex. Get them on Fortress. Be able to pass here, back onto the racing line so I can get at least decent speed through the middle of the corner. The 904s there. Bunch of cars in the pit lane. I think I actually saw a couple cars nudging into each other, up to second now. So a minute and a half off the lead, which is getting into the territory, I think, where you can actually pit, especially if it's a short pit. But a lot of cars taking a pit stop. I have to think 38 minutes, probably enough time, at least if you're in a Ford GT40, to get to the end from here. So interesting to see how this plays out. I still got to make one stop. I have quite a bit of fuel left, so I'm going to run it because I want to be on lower tanks if possible. I don't want to fill up right now and do the heavy weight all over again, especially with used tires. I don't want to change the tires on the last stop. Of course, they do it separately. Not sure if that would have been the way in the 60s, but at least for how we're doing it here, the fuel goes in first and the tires in second. So if you take tires, it's always a choice to add time, which is a pretty cool way to do it. Because just with more men, you can change tires well within the time it takes to fuel. But if you have to do it separately, it creates more strategy opportunities, especially in a series where you're kind of free to do whatever you want. Going with the inside though, this 904. Well before the kink. Up to fourth gear here. Just try not to outdo the braking anymore. Just need to try to stay on the track, reasonably quick laps. Come well off the pace that I was able to do in the daytime, but still going at a decent rate. 25 gallons of fuel left, so I think we use about 4 gallons a lap. Now that I've been doing the whole race, I know roughly, so we'll have to see how much time is left. I don't want to pit too close to the end because it gives no time if maybe you can catch somebody and make a pass, but a little hot here. Try not to spin the car out. But maybe with 20 minutes or so to go would be a good time to pit, get the fuel, and get out. That way the fill time will be a little bit shorter too. Coming to sunset, missing the first apex. So 2:53, so really 2 seconds off where I should really be lapping. But also the car is damaged. It doesn't feel too bad, but definitely when you take a huge whack like I did. Luckily I didn't have to go too far in the lap with the car like that because it really did not turn well. I don't know what the crew was able to do in that short a time. Maybe it was just a tire issue or something. I'll come through the S's here. I think I might be catching the 250. I can see one of the chaparrals in front of the 250 here too, so I haven't seen them really since the start of the race 3.5 hours ago. But not too often the chaparral made it to the end of an endurance race, so good to see. Get around this 250, holding me up quite a bit through the chicane here. Bit of oversteer coming out. Even though I have to pit one more time, being in second, after all that's happened, shabby driving, this big incident really through the kink here, I think it's not so bad. Definitely have lucked out. Ginther's been very, very good. Ultimately, if we can stay on the podium, come away with an all-Ford podium, I think Ford be pretty happy with it overall. before the 300 marker here. Just between the 2 and 300 for the final corner. Understeering through the middle there. Took the line a little too tight. Across though, 53 flat, a little bit better. I want to push overly hard, but I really would like to turn slightly more competitive times than I'm doing, while still keeping the car pointed in the right direction. Come through tower here. So we got 20 gallons left. Should be enough for 5 laps. Each lap under 3 minutes, so we come up quite a bit short on fuel, but at least it's not so close that we don't know if we're going to make it or not. We clearly aren't going to make it. Coming behind the Alpha here to the hairpin. Oh, he's so slow there. Touching slightly. See if we can get around him before the chicane. Wave my fist at him there. Reason to do that this late in the race. I think the Alphas are quite far down the order anyway, in their class even. Just manhandle the car there through the chicane. Through onto Fortress, a little wide, we'll be quick. So we're gonna be, I think, about 20 gallons we'll need to add when we go into the pits. Hard on the brakes there. I was quite late in the braking, just thinking of the fuel numbers. Still made the corner, thankfully. There's lots of runoff on that turn, but I've used so much of it during this race. It on through Sunset there. So yeah, I think we'll have to add about 20 gallons of fuel when we go in the pits. And hopefully we can go in about another 10 minutes or so before we do that. 3 laps. Another 904 in front, going up to the hairpin. Cars are so slow through the apex of the hairpin. Be once again same position we were with the Alpha. Luckily don't hit this time, but just able to get through there so much better, which is odd. Most of the corners not able to keep the apex speed up, but the hairpin is one where I am faster. get around. I can see the back of the chaparral there now. It's actually been holding station with me. So they're still fairly quick. They're still a minute and a half off of the lead. I would guess have to pit again as well. Classic oversteer onto the Fortress Straight. Like how you can see on the top of the water tower, just going out of view onto the right, there's flashing red lights like they really would have at an airport. Want to make sure planes know that tower's there. Through sunset, just 26 minutes to go. I've got 13.4 gallons, a few cars in the pit lane there. Just saw the Dino Ferrari. Get through the S's. It's quite mesmerizing at night to do the driving. Get really focused in. You can see by how much visibility there is, not hard to have major accident. I had one accident with Hans Hermann earlier. Was, I have to think, nighttime slightly. I only saw him late, and although he wasn't in the racing line or anything, just seeing a car sideways off the track that abruptly is enough to make me miss my braking marker. So you can only imagine if there's actually an accident in front of you or something and you don't quite see it till your headlight beams hit the edge of it. So a lot of things can happen fast at night. Drifted through the kink though. Still have a car off to the left just before this corner. I think that's one of the triumphs though. They litter the edge of the circuit. Alright, 10 gallons. Should get 2 more laps on it. More laps and then coming to the pits, fill up. Should only need, I'm always scared to take less fuel. I think 20 gallons, but we'll see. Well, on a whole string of cars in front, might actually be better to pit now, but it's too late to let the crew know. They won't be ready for me. The car pitting in too. I think that's actually the faster Corvette Grand Sport there that went in the pits. I think first time seeing the car in the full race. All right, starting lap 71. Get up the inside of the Sprite. Oh, he's able to hang around the outside there. One headlight out. Not a good sign. We'll catch up here to this Alpha chasing one of the GT40's 60 car. Into the dirt a little bit. Should be able to outbrake him coming into the S's. There we go. GT40 fade out wide. Ooh, he's gonna squeeze me the inside through Big Ben. Maybe didn't see me. Able to get through that whole group of traffic, luckily. You can see the chaparral in front then. Pulling up on him a little bit, but not as fast as I think I was earlier in the race. Slide it on through there, second apex. Alright, so 8 gallons. Fast there through the apex, nip the edge of the track on the way out. Trying to get the corners as straight as I can, running over all the cones on the exit. Alright, so we'll come by the pits this time, give them the sign. This will work out just about as I was planning it. I'm gonna run a little bit wide into Sunset, but come by the pits, tell them we're gonna pit. We'll come in next lap and put about 20 gallons in. Give them the signal. So 21 minutes to go. When we come in the pits, it'll be under 20. We're actually in the lead. I didn't even notice. I don't know how long it's happened that way, but car in seconds, just 19 seconds behind. It's going to be interesting to see how this all works out, just with the different pit stop strategies. I would think at this stage, pretty much everybody is going to make it to the end once this round of pit stops is done, but who knows? Who knows if there's any of the cars that need to do another pit. So if we come out in 4th or 5th or whatever it is, we'll just have to see where we finish, just put the best laps in that I can. Catching up now nicely on the chaparral, but I think we'll just about get to the end of the lap before I would catch him, and that'll save the battle, which is good for speed, bad for excitement. Get it down to first. Oh, he just leaves the inside open, running over the curbing. Staying behind him through the chicanes, holding me up quite a lot. Looks like the Hap Sharp, Jim Hall, Chaparral. Car we battled with in the first couple laps of the race, but now putting at least one lap on it, who knows. Right, come down 3rd to 2nd gear. Loose on the entry. 4 gallons remaining. Actually a little better on fuel mileage than I'm thinking, but we'll do 20 gallons. That should be plenty to make it to the end. Definitely going to lose the lead. I would be very surprised at this point if we're going to win this thing. But the chaparral gets held up here behind the Sprite. Lets me by. Down to first gear here for the 90. Running out, the Sprite catches back up for just a second there. And we'll come down to Sunset. We're just about going to catch, I think this is a Cobra in front. It's going to make it awkward. Just can't really pass. Going to be on the inside for the pits. Hopefully the stall is free and everything. It needs to be a quick stop. All right, we'll come Try not to miss the entrance. Whoa. Car snaps as I shift it into first. All right, here we go. Into the pit stall. All right, we're getting the fuel. Team will run out. We got a couple other cars coming in the pits as well. Should have them fill it up with just enough. Just got passed for the lead there. Car in third's a few seconds back. Oh, but the fuel is so slow. Alright, there we go. Just getting the fuel in. Need to have him pull it out. Restart the car. Alright, get waved out. Here we go. Back on the track. Need to wait for the pit speed. Just getting past for third then. Oh, and that might be the Ferrari that went by too. Oh, just need to wait to the end of this pit lane. 8 seconds, 9 seconds. It's going to be quite the gap to try to catch. All right, there we go. End of the pits, dip down in speed a little bit there. Oh, it's straight running to the end now. 17 minutes to go. Probably have a little too much fuel, actually. I didn't really think about how long the stop itself would be. That's why having a strategist is a good idea. But same tires, so everything should be pretty much good to go. 15 seconds, that would be so hard to make up, but we'll try. So somehow, after all this, looks like we might actually get a podium through this. So maybe some bad luck from some of the other cars. But have to think if that accident hadn't happened, actually would have been in good contention of this despite some of the other smaller mistakes. I think we had about a minute of repairs in the pit lane and we're still, well, I don't know how far we're off the lead, but we're only 15 seconds off second. Looks like he might be being held up there, down to 13 now. See a couple cars ahead of me, a puff of smoke right in front. Ooh, some bits on the ground. Down to 11 seconds. And I can see got a 904 directly in front of me. Looks like a Ferrari, maybe the Dino. We'll have to see here. We'll go through the kink. Try not to run wide or anything. Yeah, it's definitely the Dino directly in front. The car in front of me is still 11 seconds, so maybe it wasn't the Ferrari ahead of me. Won't really know until we see the results after the race. We'll just try to push second place, even if it is another 4GT, is still better than third. Past the Dino then, screaming away. 15 minutes to go. Get down to first gear. Oh, on this, one of the Mark 1s. I thought for a second it was Gurney's car. To fourth gear. Ooh, right behind me. Try not to hit me, please. Oh! Bam. Smacks into me. Oh! Big contact there. Trying to get the car spun around. I don't know how it's going to be feeling after this. Get the Corvette there. Oh, getting across the track. Oh, getting nailed into a 904. We'll stay out. I missed the pit entrance anyway. Oh, man. It just got into the apex. I was probably a little slower than I needed to be. He got spun from behind. The car's running, hitting a couple other cars. Meantime, I got whacked really hard there. Well, that ends the chase for second. Somehow I'm still in third. Got a 58-second lead on fourth. Hopefully the car makes it here to the flag. And so, two big incidents during the race. Somehow able to continue. Car got a little air there, it seemed like. So not the best race that I've done. Ooh, getting on the grass there too. But had a pretty good run going, having won the Tasman Championship and a few of the races there, winning the Daytona 24, so can't win them all. I think we should still be able to finish on the podium, thankfully. Steering feels slightly off center to the right. But as long as the car didn't get whacked right in the wheel or something, maybe it's all right. I don't know what car hit me. It's probably that Ford GT I was trying to get around. Or I had gotten around him, but he just ran into the back of me. So drama late in the race. Down to second here, a little smoke in front. Really no reason to push now. I just want to get around. Car feels a little weird. I was closing in on second too, so it's too bad. Too bad we weren't able to actually get that battle. Should be about 3 laps in this race to go. Or maybe 4. Hopefully I have enough fuel, actually. Should have enough. It's scaring me that it only says 2. Come around sunset, though. See all the skid marks from last time by. Definitely caused the second part of that accident, trying to get the car looped back around. Be a little easier on the fuel. I'm really worried about it now. I thought I would have enough. I thought I was using about 4 gallons a lap. I don't know. It's 10 minutes, so it's about 3 laps to go. It's gonna be close, nonetheless. Just silly when you're not, trying to stretch it for position or something. I guess we were trying to get up to second, pit as short as possible. Alright, get around the Dino finally. Pretty much lets us by at this point. Doesn't want any part of this thing. This car's been off on every corner. Spun around, hit the wall, hit other cars. It's definitely seen a lot. This won't be the prettiest Ford GT. Dino coming up behind me now too. Hopefully they're not spinning me out. Oh, I spin myself out pretty much. He goes by. So slow near the hairpin, but now speeds up, I guess. We'll get by him again on this straight. So 8 minutes to go. I got 10 gallons of fuel. past the pits. Oh, and we're going to pass a car. So I'm up into second for some reason. So one of the lead cars maybe got the fuel wrong. With just 8 minutes to go, passing for second position, 55 seconds off the leader, gaining still on second, who's probably that car in the pit lane. Through the S's here. Just try not to care about the fuel, try not to care about the damage or the spins. Just gotta get the end of the race together. Hopefully I can make it to the line without having to stop again, because looks like we might be in second position for this. But if it's more than 2 more laps, it's gonna be really tight. Just be fitting. Dan Gurney in real life having an engine failure on the last lap of the race from the lead. To have something go wrong right at the end wouldn't be too far off reality. But this feels like a correctable mistake with fuel calculation. 8.8 gallons. Try to save a little bit here. Shift a little earlier. There's no reason to push it. Should have done my normal and tried to put extra in. Oh, the Elise, or the Elan, rather, right behind me there. It's gonna be quicker through here. Oh, I grabbed the dirt there on the outside. We're burning a little slower than the time, so it just, you also have to think of the race doesn't, you don't immediately park the car when it hits 0 too. It depends on where you are on the track and what lap. How many laps you have to do. Better just be 2 more. Ooh, car gets a little squirrely there. Something at the end of the race. Big crash, and then just when you think you're out of it, bunch of cars in the pit lane still. Maybe some damaged cars, who knows. Alright, 5 minutes to go. 7 gallons. My number, that should be enough for exactly 2 laps. Be a little bit longer if but certainly isn't going to be 3 laps worth of fuel. Ooh, a little bit deep into the S's there. Fuel lights coming on. So if I don't get the white flag or the final lap notification this next time by, then I might have to come into the pits, I'm not sure. There's such a simple thing too. It could have taken 5 more gallons easily at that stop. Just try to ride it nice and easy here. Won't go full throttle even on the straightaways. That's probably a little too late to actually save a meaningful amount. To first there a bit late. So the car in front would have just passed the start finish. I think We're gonna have to do 2 more laps. We're gonna be short. After all that, I think we're gonna actually be short on fuel. I think I gotta come into the pits this time and also blow the corner, of course. Just because it's gonna be 2 more, although I would only have to do 1 more with the time. I might as well cross the line and see what it says. I'll be able to get around 1 more lap, but I might have to actually pit as I would come to the white flag, which is very defeating. I'll do 1 more lap around because I should be able to make it. Should be able to make it back, and all I'm hoping for is some kind of indication that there's only 1 lap to go. But of course, nothing. So there's still an opportunity to finish on the podium even with driving into the pits. So that might be the best play here. Although I don't know who's behind me. But clearly not going to win the race at this point. And that's the only position that scores any points for the manufacturer anyway. Around just a minute to go. Because of where the leader is, I think there's going to have to be 1 additional lap. Stuck in behind a Corvette here. It's not a situation either where I could maybe let the leader past me because I'd have to give up 3rd anyway. So I've used 1.8 gallons so far on this lap, so I run out about over here on the next lap, so I have to come into the pits. This is so gut-wrenching. We got a car right behind me too. I think it's the Chaparral. It's not saving anything. I'll come down to first, let him have the inside. That's the other Chaparral. That's the Joe Bonnier Chaparral. Alright, so we'll come to the final corner. We're going to have to pit in this time. Just get the smallest splash of fuel. Really, 6 gallons or something. Time has run out. I think we'd have to do 1 more lap and we just wouldn't make it. Well, you get everything in this season. You get the victories and you get the defeats. And I think, although we're going to still, I think we can maybe keep it on the podium. It depends how far back 4th is. But even with the defeat, maybe still get a podium here. All right, slow it on down. 1st gear. Oh, always oversteer there. Oh, getting bumped out of the way from the Chaparral. This is all about coming to the pit stall. All right, having them put just like 8 gallons in it. So we'll come out of the pits and an absolute mess. We'll come across the line. We're actually going to get the checkered flag right there to finish it. And smack into the wall, of course. The officials had us fix the damage. We couldn't not fix the damage from the incident, and so end up coming away in the 5th position here. We'll just roll out of the pits. This is such a disappointing ending to this one. I had high hopes for it. It's such a tough track, and I don't think my driving was nearly as good as it would need to be to actually do a good job here, but to finish like that just feels very defeating. Running out of fuel, really just being about 4 gallons short in the pit stops, and something I could have easily added in at that one stop we took towards the end, but live and learn, I guess. It's all preparation for the big ones, I guess, and we will now know to do better fuel calculations before heading over to Le Mans and the others. So there we have the final results. Ken Miles and Lloyd Ruby taking a well-deserved win there ahead of AJ Foyt and Ronnie Bucknam. So a Ford 1-2, which is important for points. That means the next best points that a team could score is 4. And Rodriguez and Andretti did finish in 3rd position after all that to pick up 4 points. So I think the Ford bosses are going to be pretty upset with how things fell apart towards the end of the race. I think we could have had those 4 points easily, if not, finishing in 2nd, had we just filled the car a little bit more and maybe not hit as many things as I did. So Ginther and I ended up coming away 4th in class, but 5th overall. In 4th place overall and winning the Sports 2000 class was the Comstock Racing team, GT40, with Epi Wintz and Fisher driving there. So good win for them and finishing really far up the order. It looks like towards the end of the race, Dan Gurney actually retired with a DNF with about a lap to go. Maybe ran out of fuel, who knows. Maybe blew his engine like he did in real life, but he fell pretty far down the leaderboard. Coming in with the win in the P2 class was Joe Siffert with the Charles Fogel Porsche 906. So that's great to see a fellow F1 driver winning in the P2 class. And then lastly, in the GT class, the Lotus Elan from Autolab did actually come away with the win after the Corvette Stingray led so much of the race. The Lotus Elan was finally able to overtake him, and luckily, because I think I almost took out that car with all the incidents I was doing, but they were luckily able to come away with it. So looking at the points coming away from this round, Ford still maintains the lead. Perfect season so far with 2 wins. I brought that home at Daytona, and then Ken Miles here today, repeating his real-life victory and winning at Sebring. Ferrari, though, pick up 4 points for that 3rd place, which we could have shut them out even more than that had I actually done my job and finished up front. And Chaparral actually picks up 2 points for their 5th place finish. Hap Sharp and Jim Hall getting that. So they're finally on the board, and we got a 3-way championship, I guess. So we lead the way with Ford 18 points over Ferrari's 10. I say we, but who knows if I still have a job after this one. So that about wraps it up here for round 2 of the 1966 World Sports Car Championship here from Sebring. Interesting race. I could have raced so much better and will leave me wanting a little bit more. And luckily, there's a few more sports car races before the big one at Le Mans. So if I can still get the entry, maybe we can test out some of these strategies a bit better and perfect everything for the time the big one comes. But until then, there's quite a bit more going on in the future of Richie Axelson. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again next time.